Hi, everyone. Welcome to Moments. My name is Desola.
And I'm Rye.
She is Rye. Now, we are doing a podcast about moments in everyone's lives that have either shaped or impacted their lives based on any experiences they've been through, whether they be good or bad. We felt like that's something that a lot of people go through, and everyone has moments. So that is what we're talking about. We're gonna have a different topic every single day.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we are, and then we're also gonna have a different guest every day. Actually, two guests.
Yes, we definitely are. And today's topic that we are having is daddy issues. And for those of you who don't know what daddy issues are, please tell us, Deshola.
Well, okay, so, daddy issues can be many things. It just depends on who you are. Everyone has their own experience with it. But according to dictionary.com, daddy issues is an informal phrase for the psychological challenges resulting from an absent or abnormal relationship with one's father, often manifesting in a distrust of or sexual desire for men who act as father figures.
Woo! Deep.
Right?
Daddy issues is serious. And we're definitely going to always discuss, issues or experiences, like Deshola said, good or bad, that people have gone through that you can relate or, have someone, help you out there, something that you're currently going through and you don't know how to address it. So someone who's already been through it, can help you through the process. So that's why we will have two guests every episode to tell their real, true life story.
Yes. And by the way, some episodes will be able to relate to the topic. Sometimes we won't be. This topic, and I feel like everyone can kind of relate in a way.
Seriously.
Like for me, for example, I wouldn't say I have daddy issues, but I don't have the best relationship with my dad. So maybe that is daddy issues. I don't know. I mean, not. I mean, he's fine. Like I have no issue with him, but it's not like we're not close at all. And that's just kind of what it is. It's always been like that. There's not really
But
any
why is that?
reasoning.
There's not a reason.
No, I mean just his personality. You know, like he never like did anything to me or anything like that. It's just none of my siblings are necessarily close to my dad, so that's just kind of what it is. What about you?
My dad has been in my life my whole entire life, but it's so funny. People always assume that um, you have daddy issues only if your father was absent. And it's so crazy because I actually suffered from daddy issues. And my father was very much physically there, but he wasn't emotionally and mentally there. So, where you have, I guess, the relationship where, a father and daughter are close and you learn about the birds and the bees and how men are. I didn't have that experience. My father and I got closer in my later years in life where I've already kind of been through all my, frogs, I should say. So I kind of had to figure it out for myself. So I would say, I suffer from daddy issues because I was always looking for someone to be there more emotionally for me because I didn't, get it from my father. He was, physically there, but that emotional part wasn't there. So that was kind of my experience of,
I'm
suffering from
glad you
that.
said that. That is true. Also, my dad was around. Also, by the way, I didn't grow up in the same house with him 24/7, but he was around all the time. But I still, just was not close to him. So,
Right,
you
right,
know,
right.
but hey, it is what it is. We all have our own stories, which is why I'm super excited for our first guest. For both of our guests actually,
Yeah.
but our first guest we have Lexi here, and Lexi is from the Bay in California,
Woo woo,
and
Bay
Lexi's going to share
Area.
her story.
Hey, welcome, Lexi. Thank you so much for joining our show moments. We're so excited to have you today, especially on a topic that is so important and so prevalent with like so many people around the world. So thank you so much.
Hey Lexi, thank you for joining us. How you feeling today?
Hey guys, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you're excited. So you can just this topic is serious. Daddy issues. A lot of people have them, unfortunately, but that's just kind of what it
Right.
is. So let us know your story.
Yes. So I mean, I would say that I had a pretty normal childhood. Um, my life changed definitely when I was about 20 or 21. Just literally just out the blue. Like I really thought that I had like a perfect family. And my mom, she took me on a drive somewhere and we were just quiet the whole time. I don't even think we played any music or anything like that. And she took me. I remember it was in Sacramento at this Mexican restaurant in the parking lot. And then she just looked at me and she said that your dad and I are getting a divorce. And I was super blindsided. I was like really confused because yeah, I had like a seemingly perfect family. My parents never even argued. So this was definitely a surprise to literally everyone. Um, but yeah, I was an adult. I was 2021, so definitely was super confused. And my mom, she didn't really tell me the full story right then and there. It took her months. It took her months and months for and she just started like after a few months just kind of releasing more of the story on why they were getting a divorce because my dad didn't initially move out after my mom had that talk with me that my parents were getting a divorce. She told me not to tell my siblings, and maybe like 4 or maybe I would say 3 to 4 months later is when my dad actually moved out, and then more of the story started coming out. But initially, I found out, yeah, my dad was pretty much living a whole secret life. He had multiple mistresses and girlfriends
Mm.
and all this crazy stuff. So yeah,
Wow.
it's been a journey.
Well, I have a question. I have a couple of questions from hearing that. One, I would say I was surprised. I wasn't expecting you to say you were 20 something. Because I feel like usually when we hear daddy issues, you think it's a lifelong thing. So there's that.
Mhm.
Also, how did it feel when your mom told you and then told you not to tell your siblings? Like, was there any pressure for you, or how was that?
Yeah, I know. I do think that it's like a common misconception that daddy issues can only start at an early age, but I think that's completely false. It really depends on the relationship that you have with your father. It can change really any day. But yeah, I'm the oldest sibling out of three. I have a younger brother and sister, so yeah, my mom told me to not tell them, so I'm like, okay, I have to listen to her. I'm gonna just like do whatever it is that she wanted me to do to make the process easier for her. So I don't even, to be honest, I don't even remember exactly the moment that she was, I know that I didn't break the news to them. I want to say that my parents, like after a couple of months of me knowing, they kind of all sat us down and told us at the same time. So, but
Mm.
yeah, me being the big sister, I was definitely trying to be there for my siblings as much as I could.
Now, being that you said that you had you thought that you had the perfect life and the perfect family for all these years, how did that affect you at that moment in time? Did it affect you for any current relationships that you had with men, or did you start to look at men differently? Being that you had your father for all these years, you probably felt like there were no daddy issues in your life that would ever
Mhm.
exist. Like, how did it change you and your outlook, like for men or any current relationships that you had at that moment in time?
Yeah. So I was still very young in my early 20s. So I wasn't in any sort of serious relationships. And I will say that even though which is like now I could look back at it and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's why that happened. But I mean, I never really had a strict upbringing. My parents kind of, yeah, they were very like lenient with me in a lot of things. And the same thing kind of went for guys. Like I wasn't, like I was like allowed to have like guy friends over and things like that. But then when my dad left and I'm like, okay, there's no like male in the house, I kind of like I went wild for a little bit. I definitely went through
Right.
like I guess I call it like my daddy issues phase. Sorry, mom, if you're gonna listen to this, but I was definitely wilding out with guys for a minute.
Now,
Yeah.
do you think that? Oh, sorry. Do you
Oh,
think
sorry.
you
No, no,
were
no.
wilding out because, like, just because your dad wasn't there to look over you and tell you what to do, or do you think it was kind of like, whatever, I'm gonna do what I want to do, like my parents are doing what they want to do, so I'm gonna live my life.
Yeah, I guess it was a mixture. I'm like, okay, my dad, he left. He was, yeah, like just a trash human being. I'm just gonna have fun and I'm not gonna like follow any rules. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And when my dad was in the house, I kind of did. There was like some sort of, I guess you could say, like a respect thing. Like I wasn't gonna do all this crazy stuff because, yeah, I was like kind of like a daddy's girl. But now that that was gone, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do more exploring.
Right, right.
Wow.
And do you
Oh
feel like
gosh.
it was?
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're
Sorry,
fine.
guys.
Take your time. This is definitely something that's very sensitive, and I don't know if you've actually elaborated on it or kind of take a trip down memory lane for it. So please take your time. Do you think it was something that you were more so rebelling for yourself, or you were trying to hurt him? Did you feel like by you wilding out with other men that you could get to him and be like, hey, I'm doing this because of you? Or you just wanted to just wild out because you made it at the
Mm.
time, it made you feel like it make you feel better?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think that I was really doing it in spite of him. I never was really thinking about him when I was doing these sort of things, maybe subconsciously, of course. But I would
Mm-hmm.
say that it was definitely more so like a rebellion thing. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of do what I want. I remember this guy that I was dating at the time. He wasn't my boyfriend. He actually became my boyfriend like later. But he always he told me like, yeah, girls that like grow up with like single moms, they're like way more fun. And then I don't know, I feel like I just kind of like internalized that. I'm like, yeah, yeah, they're more fun. Okay, I'm gonna have more fun.
Wow.
And that was like my identity for a little bit.
Wow. Well, my question is, which is what I think everyone is wondering, when your mom told you what she told you, how did your relationship with your dad change?
Mm-hmm.
Me and my dad, we didn't talk for 2 years.
Whoa.
After that, yeah, we didn't talk. He would write letters to me, and I'm assuming also to my siblings as well, but I never responded to them. Yeah, I would just pretty much flat out ignore him.
So even when you lived in the same house with him, you didn't speak to him?
So after my mom told me about the divorce, he stayed with us for a few more months, and after he left the house, I didn't speak with him again.
Wow, that's very that's probably hard for you, especially, growing up having your father, all this time. What was your relationship like with your father before this?
Yeah, I was definitely a daddy's girl. Like, I thought my dad was like one of the coolest people. He taught me a lot about like different music, and my dad is from New York, so I would take trips with him to New York sometimes. He was like my softball coach at one time. Like, everybody always thought that my dad was like the coolest guy.
Yeah.
So it was a shock to everybody that of what he did.
And did you ever feel like you were like a part to blame or contribute to, him wanting to do what he did? Or did you know that really had nothing to do with you and it was his own issues?
Yeah, I definitely knew that this was all on him. My mom definitely she made it known like these are things that have happened in your dad's side of the family for a long time.
Right.
Like his dad did it, and other family members have done it as well. So she was like, "This has nothing to do with you guys. This is all the that side of the family. That's something that they need to work out
Right.
within themselves."
I'm so glad that one, your mom told you that, and I'm so glad that you didn't internalize any of that because I feel like a lot of people, and maybe it's just because they find out things or the parents break up when they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a lot of kids like blame themselves, like, oh, maybe it's my fault. Which I'm always
Hmm.
like how? It's not your
Right.
fault that your parents want to do whatever they want to do. So I'm glad you didn't have that part of you that was blaming yourself because obviously it's not your fault at all.
Right.
Yeah, you're right, and um, probably because it was that I was a little bit older, that I'm like, okay, I'm already like full grown. I mean, not a full grown adult, but yeah, I was like pretty much an adult by then. So I had already done a lot of growing up. But I'm sure that if it would have happened to me at a younger age, I would have had different feelings towards it.
Right. And you said that you have younger siblings, so you kind of have this responsibility to be that the big sister, to not only be there for your mother, but to also be there for your siblings. How did your relationship with your siblings, did it remain the same? Did you guys get, stronger? Did you guys distance yourself? Because I know sometimes when families go through, tragedies, they either, become distant because they don't know how to address it, or they, become closer.
Hmm. Yeah. So I did what I could, but I've always kind of considered myself a little bit of the black sheep of my family. When I was living at home with my family, I was definitely someone who was like really into partying and going out. And my siblings, well, my brother, he's 7 years younger than me, so we had like a pretty big age gap. And then my sister, she was 4 years younger than me, and her and I were the complete opposite. She was very into like church, and she wasn't really into going out. So we didn't have much in common. We actually became a lot closer when the both her and I we both moved to LA the same year, a few years back, and yeah, our relationship has really blossomed since then. But yeah, when we were still living in the same house, um, I don't I don't even remember too clearly, but I know that we weren't super close.
Okay. And now, did you move to LA for like school, or like I'm assuming you moved for school. So when you did you move for school?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
did.
when you moved, did you want to go, away from the Bay Area because of your situation at home, or you were already planning on moving to LA regardless?
No, I've always wanted to live in LA. So, I feel like I would have ended up here regardless, even if my parents were together.
Okay.
I would have
Okay.
yeah, I would have still wanted to come out here.
Okay.
Did you blame your mom at all for anything?
Um, initially I did. I feel like my dad, he was kind of like brainwashing me. When my mom first told me about the divorce and my dad was still living with us, he would just be like, "Oh, well, your mom did this and she did
Mm,
that." So I was a little bit angry at her for a while, and then I had to. There were other things that happened, and I can't specifically remember them, but I just kept like catching my dad in lies, and I'm like, "Oh, like whatever you say, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm gonna like take it at face value." But
mm,
yeah, there was for a few months I was like, okay, well, is there something more you could have done? But that was pretty short lived.
yeah,
Like
I
So
asked.
if people know my mom, like my mom was like an angel.
Yeah, I asked that because I know sometimes that happens. Where it's sometimes the kids can be, just so angry in general at
mhm.
the whole situation that they take it out on the wrong parent, and then
Mhm.
also like what it sounds like your dad did is, they try to manipulate the situation. So
Hmm.
that's why I was asking, if that was the case. So.
Yeah. Oh,
So
and one other thing too is that since you brought that up, yeah, when my parents told me initially, or sorry, when my mom told me initially that my dad was leaving and he had like another girlfriend. I didn't know like all about all these other women that he was seeing, so that definitely made me be like, oh, well, I just can't believe you, because even women that I had known that he had
Oh,
introduced me to, he was
stop!
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
like
it was
family
a
friends
lot.
kind of thing.
Yes, family, friends, like hairdresser, like a lot.
Mm.
so
Wow.
you said you didn't speak to your father for 2 years. So then when you did start speaking into him again, what made you want to speak to him? Like what sparked that interest to have a conversation with him? And then how did that change your relationship with your mother?
um I remember when I started speaking with him, it was on my birthday. He reached out to me, and I want to say that he texted me, and then I might have texted him back, and then I think from then we just started like texting each other for a few months until we like built up a phone call. But when I say texting, I'm not talking about like these like really elaborate conversations. I'm talking about like, oh, thinking about you, like have a good day, like honestly pretty generic,
Just short and sweet.
um pretty generic messages. But I kind of was just tired of not having a relationship with my dad, so I was just taking it. And I would say that it did affect my relationship with my mom, because during that time I feel like my mom, she had a lot of healing that she needed to do.
Hmm.
And she would almost, I feel like, almost take it out on me and my siblings.
Okay.
How did you handle that? Like, would you respond? Are you someone who responds and like comes back at her, or do you just let her do what she needed to do because you knew she was going through something?
Yeah, I definitely just let her like vent to me. And sometimes, yeah, she would just vent to me for hours and like send me videos to watch and all these things that just I felt like it was getting in the way of my healing process, because I'm like, I feel like um you are like inflicting your healing process upon me. So I just had to really just take a step back and be like, okay, this is my mom. She loves me. She's like doing all of these things because she does love me and she doesn't want me to go through the same things. Um, and find a man that's like my father. So I understand why she's really trying to educate on like the type of men I need to date. But yeah, it definitely was getting like it was beginning to get to be a lot for a long time. So I had to really just I had to have multiple talks with her, and I'm like, hey, I was having like a really great day today, and then you just like kind of hit me with like venting about my dad, and it kind of put me in this mood. And I'm like, I'm over here trying to do my own healing process. So we've had to have several talks about that, about boundaries in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was gonna ask that. 'Cause, sometimes I've. It seems like when our parents. Well, I don't know who your mom was prior, but sometimes it seems when our parents go through certain things, let's say a breakup, it's like they almost, depending on what kind of parent you have, they almost tell us a lot more than they ever normally would,
Mhm.
or just expose things that you're like, wait a minute, what, because I guess
Mhm.
they're so hurt or whatever they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And my parents, they were married for 20 years, so I'm like, yeah, this was just so much hurt on her end. So I always try to sympathize with her and just see how she feels. And yeah, I just kind of give her a lot of like leeway when she was during her healing process.
Right. And
Wow.
it's so since it's been a couple of years, you have, healed and you've grown. How has this, changed you as a person? Like, who have you become as a person, whether it's, negative or positive? And how do you think this has, helped or maybe hurt, any relationships, not even just, romantic relationships, because I'm sure it's affected you a little bit trust wise because this was someone you've trusted your whole life. So how's that, just helped you for the negative and for the positive?
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely still a process. The biggest lesson that it taught me is that I really just people are just gonna do them regardless. Like, um, I don't want to say that you can't trust people, but people make decisions and they make decisions to make them happy. So if they feel like cheating on them is going to make them happy, then that's what they're going to do. So it's really just taught me to not take things at offense when people do things that would be seemingly that would seemingly hurt me.
So how do you think this has changed you, for any future relationships that you could potentially have? Has it made you feel like you want to have a guard up and be closed off, or are you still going to go into a relationship and love with an open heart, even though your father has, damaged, your family essentially?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of women that experience just trauma within their family, especially with their dad, they end up going towards someone that's just like that man, or someone else in their family that's hurt them.
Hmm.
So for me lately, I've been on such like a self love, self healing um, journey, and I've like taken up like meditation and taken up yoga and all of these things. They've really allowed me to take a really interesting look at my life, and I just don't have room for anything that's toxic, whether it's relationships, friendships, work, anything. I don't have room for it. So yeah, I've definitely taken um traits that my dad has had, and now I know like certain things to look for, because
Mm.
um I would say that my dad is like a master manipulator.
Hmm.
But yeah, when you're just like loving yourself better, you just really understand your standards. So it would just be really hard for a man that is like that to enter my life right now at the stage that I'm at.
I love what you just said. When you love yourself better,
Right.
you understand your standards.
Hmm.
Okay? I mean, no, for real,
Hmm.
that's serious that a lot of people need to hear. When you love yourself, you know like what you're worth. You know what you're willing to
Right.
accept and not accept.
Hmm.
I have one more question for you, which I think everyone wants to know. How is you and your dad's relationship now, today?
Yes, that was my last question too.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so I will say that we were good. I mean, I shouldn't say good because it's still. um, I still understand that my dad himself, he still has a lot of healing to do. He's actually married to one of the women that he cheated on my mom with, and they've been married for a few years
Wow.
now. And I just feel like, yeah, their whole relationship was just built on lies. And to be honest, I'm just not ready to be a part of that.
Mm.
Considering she was my dad's mistress for so long. So I for the past few years, I've definitely kept my dad at kind of like an arm's length. But we currently are not even speaking right now because he did something pretty horrible a few months ago. And yeah,
Wow.
haven't talked to him since I want to say uh, October.
Wow. Well,
Do
oh,
you think that you guys will ever get back on track, or that's something that you're not really concerned about right now? You're just trying to get you to, a good a point where you feel fully healed.
Exactly. Yeah. Right now, I'm just really focused on me. Um, I pray for him every day. I send him positive vibes. I'm like thinking about you, Dad. I hope you're doing well today. Yeah, maybe one day he. There, I will just say that there needs to be something like really like a drastic shift in his life for him to enter my life again.
wow.
Right.
Well, I want to say, wow. If I don't know if you're open to it or not, but if you guys can have a good relationship, I hope that does happen for you if you're open to that. And I also just want to say I love that you're obviously still open to him in a sense. You have him at a you know a distance, but you still send positive vibes to him. So that shows that whatever you're doing to work on yourself is working for you. Because you're still willing to send out the positive vibes to him, even though you're not really his biggest fan right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But no, I definitely believe people can grow and people can change. So, yes, I'm very open to having a relationship with him one day, just not today.
She's like, and on that
Well,
note,
right. Well, thank you so much, Lexi, for giving us your, experience and your insight. You definitely sharing your story today is gonna 100% help someone. I know it will, because there's so many people who are going through the same thing. So thank you for being so open and vulnerable with us. We really
thank you,
appreciate it.
Lexi.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm like, oh, I don't know how this conversation is going to make me feel, but you guys are freaking amazing. I felt so
Oh,
comfortable. This was great.
I'm glad. Thank you so much,
yay!
Lexi.
Thank you.
All right, so our next guest is Chloe, who is a 26-year-old from Las Vegas, and she is here to share her story. So, hey, Chloe, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. We are glad to have you. We're excited to hear your story. As you know,
All
this
right.
episode is about daddy issues, and it seems like so many people, can relate to the subject. So, feel free to start your story whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I think it's really sad how many people can relate to the story. I in so my personal story, I guess, I don't know if like a lot of people can relate to this, but I'll try to give you like the brief version. My parents divorced when I was like right before I turned 8, and my dad started dating a new woman when I was about 10. The woman was like really toxic. She would do crazy things like go through my stuff. She made my dad relay to my brother and I that we were no longer allowed to talk about my mom or anyone on my mom's side of the family. And then she eventually gave him an ultimatum that he needed to pick between her or his children.
Mm,
So he picked her. In those next 2 years, I was in middle school, my brother was in elementary school, and my dad had a responsibility to for a custody agreement, as well as child support. He just one day never showed up to pick my brother or I up from my mom's house. He stopped paying the child support. He changed his phone numbers. He changed the locks on his house. And he
Mm,
basically cut us off entirely for like those 2 years. And so I remember I couldn't even get in contact with my grandparents on his side of the family because they reached out to him asking for our contact, and he just like wouldn't give it to them. And I had to through it sounds so crazy, but through the yellow pages and the
right.
internet, I was able to get my grandma's phone number, and I was able to get back in contact with her during those 2 years. Um, And then just one day randomly, he reached out to us after those 2 years and he was like, I want to come back into your life, but let's not talk about what happened. Let's just kind of like turn a new chapter and move forward. And I was so young. I was like 12 at this time. I was just like happy to have my dad back in any capacity, and so I didn't question him. I didn't really like fight back in any regard, and he came back in my life. As far as I knew, things were going to be better. He was still married to her at this time, and it was just really bad. Like they would fight, and we would have to leave the house because their fighting was so bad. She would say bad things about my mom. I remember one time we had to leave in a hurry because they'd gotten in a fight and I accidentally left my phone at the house. She went through my phone and saw that in my phone her contact was crazy lady. And then like later on, she like brought that up in an argument, like used it against me. I remember she told me I wore too much makeup. And Deshola, you know me, like I don't wear too much makeup. But she said she compared my makeup to like costume, like theater makeup.
Mm.
Um, just like really bad stuff. And then they finally ended up getting a divorce because she was so crazy. We had to rent an apartment outside of the house, and he had to call my uncle in from Florida. He had to call my mom, who they were divorced at this point, but say basically like, just letting you know, I'm leaving Lisa. And basically, shit's gonna hit the fan. And so, like, I need you to kind of like be there to like tell the cops like I'm not missing, everything's fine. I just need to kind of like get away for a little bit while things are dying down because I'm going to be filing for divorce. So he divorces her, and I thought, okay, cool. Like I have my dad back, everything's back to normal. And then in 2016, I found out that though they had divorced, though he's paying her alimony, like I thought all of this was in the past, he had actually been secretly seeing her the entire time. And I'm not really one to confront a situation. Like any type of conflict, I pretty much shy away from to the fullest. And so I never addressed it with him, but he noticed that like my behavior was changing because though I'm someone who like can't deal with conflict, I can't be fake. And so like I can't like have a conversation with someone and be like fine and normal and like have them think that like nothing is wrong.
Mhm.
And so he started noticing differences in my behavior and talked to my brother. And my brother basically told him what was wrong, because he knew. And my dad basically just like doubled down and was like super stubborn and defensive in his behavior, saying things like, no one's going to tell me who I can and can't date. Her behaving this way literally just makes me want to date Lisa even more, which I mean, that's just one of the examples of the things that he said, which I found to be so inappropriate, considering he was saying that to my brother, who was younger than me and who was there for all of that shit that he like put us through. So, um, fast forward to present day, and I am finally going to therapy for all of the shit that he's, I guess, done over the years. And recently I accomplished something that like I never thought I'd be able to do, but I wrote him like a 6-page letter, and I basically just said everything that like I wanted to say to him as a kid and as an adult. I got it all down and I delivered it to him, and he read it and he replied to me, but it was just kind of like it was just too little too late. Like it was just a bullshit apology, like him continuing to not take accountability, and just basically being like, well, we'll always love you. So um that's where we're at now.
Well,
So that's a lot. Like,
I
and
know, I know it's so much because it's literally like 10 to 15 years of experience like I'm trying to pack into like one
yeah. We
story.
need. I was gonna
right.
ask certain things, but Mariah, you can ask.
So I wanted to ask you. It sounds like that you went through a process of feeling like someone is going to be there and then they're not, and they're going to be there and then they're not. So it's kind of like abandonment in a way. It was essentially is what he did to you and your family. So do you feel that you are kind of guarded with certain relationships, whether it's romantic or not, feeling like someone's just going to leave anyway? So do you have a guard up, as in you don't really care so much just because of what your dad did do?
So like you're definitely right where you're asking questions about abandonment issues, because again, like I'm going to therapy for this.
Hmm.
I believe that the issues that my dad caused as a child, they kind of like festered and turned into other issues that
Mhm.
basically like branched out and created other issues. And so now I'm an adult, but I have all of these different issues that I feel like come back to him. And
Right.
while abandonment issues is one of those, yeah, I feel like it's manifested itself in other ways. So like another thing to kind of like add into this mix is like I was molested as a kid too. And so
Okay.
I feel like that kind of like manifests itself in other ways as like your dad leaving you does. Like I
Right.
feel like everything kind of like affects you differently. So like I don't feel like it's affected me in a romantic relationship aspect, but like I have a really hard time, or I would say since quarantine I've actually gotten a lot better at this, but pre-quarantine, I mean Deshola knows, I used to really struggle with being alone. Like if I was alone at my house, I would be calling, texting my friends to come over, or I would
Mhm.
leave, or
A
like
lot of FaceTime.
I yeah, a lot of FaceTime, which I still do love FaceTime, but like it was definitely like an abnormal amount. And I think I've like gotten a lot better. Maybe quarantine, maybe therapy, maybe all of it together has like helped me. But I would say the things that like my dad has affected me the most with is my sense of pride. So I'm like a super stubborn, super prideful person. And like
Mhm.
I feel like I have this complex that like I want to do everything by myself. I don't need anyone's help because
Right.
like my dad wasn't there to like show me how to do things. My dad wasn't part of the process when I was like an adolescent, and like he wasn't there for when I bought my first house or like when I put myself through college. Like I didn't go to him for anything, and I feel like that's how I am now. Like I like to do things alone. I don't want to give anyone else the credit. I don't want help from anyone. If I have to ask for help, it makes me feel weaker. And so like I guess to essentially answer your question, I don't think that the abandonment issues have like affected my romantic relationships, but they have definitely like festered in other ways.
Right. Well, essentially, you build up this like I don't need no man type shit because when you have
Right.
a man who has not been in your life and you have still made it through without him and have prospered and continued to succeed over and over and reach levels and goals that you have never thought you've had to obtain until you were put in a
Mhm.
certain situation, you don't need anyone because women feel like we need the man to change our tire and our light and stuff, but
Mhm.
when you don't have that and you do it yourself, you don't need anyone for shit, so but I think the feeling of you not wanting to be alone probably comes from the
Mhm.
abandonment, but I think you also mentally know that you can be alone because you've done it for so long by yourself. So maybe that's what therapy is helping with, realizing, giving you that realization, like I don't need nobody. I've been doing this shit by myself.
Yeah,
So
it's funny you bring up like the like not needing a man, because I feel like in my experience I would consider myself a serial monogamous. Like I
mhm.
bounce from relationship to relationship, and like
It's funny that you said that. Remind me on something earlier.
okay.
Yeah, no, but yes.
No, the reason why I bring that up is because like I people who are close to me know me as someone who's like always in a relationship, and I always
Mhm.
have a boyfriend. And I don't like to say that because I feel like that sounds toxic. I feel like it's like I bounce from relationship to relationship, whereas like
Mhm.
I'm in these situations where I am in these really long-term relationships and I get out of them, and it's like I don't go looking for people. I've never like used a dating app. I don't ask people to set me up. I don't like complain to people that like I hate being single. It's like the
Mhm.
right people come into my life at the right time. And
Right, right.
by the way, I'm very against the use of dating apps. I just think like the idea of it like dehumanizes the dating
Oh,
experience. I
come
think
on.
that
Mhm.
it's just I just don't like it. I don't like it. But I have also been dealt a certain hand. Like I've been in my life has consisted of people walking into my life at the right time. And so like maybe I'm a little bit more privileged in that sense. Like maybe
Right.
there aren't other people who are like as I guess fortunate as that. So yeah, I would say that my experience is not like someone who would go on a dating app. And so I just I don't like saying it because it does sound like I like go looking for these people, but like I genuinely feel like everyone I've dated has like just kind of fell in my lap, if that makes sense. But then
Right.
again, I don't really do anything to like push them away and be like, no, I need time for me, I need time to be single and like
Mhm.
find myself, which maybe that's what I should have been doing at the same time. So who knows? I don't know if it's just like chance is causing it or if it's me not wanting to be alone and I like wind up in these relationships. So I
Well,
don't
I have
know.
a few questions. One, I want to go back to the beginning because I feel like a lot of people are going to want to know more details because a lot of it we skipped over a little bit. But
Right. I know.
before we get to that, so you just brought up the fact that you feel like you are a serial dater. Okay.
hmm
Um, do you think that you actually do need to be alone for like an extended period of time to really find yourself, or do you think that you're fine?
Like, do you think I should be alone to
Yeah,
find myself? Is that what you're
yeah,
asking?
because you know you said that maybe you should have taken the time to really be alone
Right.
and like get to know yourself and everything. Do you feel like you still need to do that, or do you think you're okay?
I honestly feel like therapy itself has helped me a lot. So I don't know. That's a hard question for me to answer. Because you can't speak on something that like you've never experienced. So like to me, therapy is the answer. Like to me, I'm just gonna say like if I'm having an issue, I'll deal with it in therapy. I don't think like me being alone is gonna like fix anything. So yeah, I don't really know how to answer that
That's
question.
fair. Now, the question I have going back is you mentioned a few things about the story, but there are obviously gaps in the years. So the first thing I want to know
Yeah.
is how did you feel when this happened? When you were a little kid, when your parents got divorced when you're 8, your dad got married to this lady who you said was crazy,
hmm
crazy lady, right? And how did you feel when your dad cut you off? Like how was that in your family? How was that with your mom, with your brother, all of that?
So yeah, it was really hard. I like I said, I was 10 and I remember that it all kind of like snowballed. I remember like at first I really liked her. I really thought she was like cool and likable and then things just kind of started to get worse and I remember on my 10th birthday the one thing I asked my dad for, I didn't like ask for any gifts. I was just like, I just want to spend the day with you. And he brought her along. And then by the end of the day, I can't remember what happened, but he said that because I hadn't been good, I wasn't going to get my birthday or because I had been mean to Lisa, I wasn't going to get my birthday
Hmm.
presents.
Hmm.
And from that point, it just kind of like got worse to the point where the custody agreement was that I would stay with my mom Monday through Thursday. He would pick me up on Friday from school, and then I'd spend the weekend with him. And I remember one Friday, I was just like, I don't want to go to dad's. Like, mom, please come pick me up. And she was like, okay. So I didn't see him that weekend. And then the following Thursday night, he was supposed to come. He just never came.
And that was the end.
And he wasn't yeah, that was the end. He never answered his phone from that point. I had his cell phone and his work phone. I remember like it's like hard for me to like talk about being emotional because I don't like to talk about my emotions, but I remember being like a little kid laying in bed and like calling his I knew he would never answer his work phone because he worked like a 9 to 5, but I would still call his work phone and leave voicemails of me being I think I was probably like 11 at this point and like I was crying on the voicemails and like I don't remember what I was saying but it was probably something along the lines of like I miss you like please like come back into my life like why are you doing this did I do like what did I do did I do something wrong and that's kind of like what I talked about in the letter that I sent him was like as a kid I kind of always felt like I had done something wrong or
Mhm.
like I don't want to say I deserved it, but like I felt like what could I possibly have done? And then like it wasn't until I became an adult and like I had time to reflect on everything and I realized like there was never anything wrong with me. There was always just something wrong with him.
It is
Right.
so
And it
frustrating hearing that. I'm sorry. You know,
mhm.
you because when we're talking to people and you're hearing their stories and everything, it's like for me it's just it's so
It's
selfish because it's
unbelievable.
so
Yeah.
selfish. Even the fact that
Right.
she's saying like he was really blaming her for like he said, "Oh, well, I didn't get you this or I'm not hanging out with you on your birthday alone because you were mean to Lisa." And then you didn't go to his house one Friday because of the situation, then he stopped talking to you for 2 years. It's almost like
hmm
as if he was punishing you for things that he was really doing, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. As a child, you definitely are gonna feel like it's your fault, or what did I do wrong, or what could I have done better, because you don't really understand,
Yeah.
what is exactly going on because you're so young. And our previous guest, Lexi, it was, the same thing for her, is that she wanted to like blame herself, but she had to realize that people are going to do what they want to do. And when people are selfish, such as your father, he was going to
Hmm.
do what he felt made him happy, no matter what, if it meant hurting someone else. And that is the unfortunate part, especially when it comes to your children. Like, hurt anybody, but not your children, not the people. Like, you weren't asked to be brought in this world.
Right.
So that's just a very unfortunate part. But I mean, I'm glad that you're able to go to therapy and able to reflect. And, you have so much, there's like internal damage that you are trying to fix so you don't project it externally, for yourself and others as well.
Hmm.
So it's such a good thing that you're, in therapy, because some people think therapy doesn't work at all whatsoever. And
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was and I was someone who was like I was forced to go to therapy as a kid for like a number of reasons. I mean, like I said earlier,
Right.
I was molested by my cousin. So like I was forced to go as a young kid, and like it just automatically put a bad taste in my mouth because like no one wants to do anything that they're forced to do, much less like
Right.
Mm.
over like you don't want to relive the trauma, especially like when you're a little
Hmm.
kid. And it's just like that was my first experience with therapy, and it was not a positive one. And then like I had to go back as like a later in life because um before my dad remarried, my mom was dating guys, and like I didn't like the guys she was dating, like they were toxic men. And so like
Hmm.
it it was another situation where I just didn't want to be there. And then like it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm an adult, like I need to course correct basically. And like I'm
Right.
not gonna let like this like these people who like played significant roles in my life, I'm no longer going to let them not control me, but like control who I become. And so I kind of like took matters into my own hands. And yeah, like if there's anyone out there who like doesn't believe in therapy or doesn't think that they should like try it, like especially if you have health insurance, like who's going to pay for it, like why not,
Why not? Right.
why not at least try it?
Do you think that this experience that you have gone through has made you like stronger? Like, what
Oh
lesson
yeah.
have you learned, like, from going through this, of years of this, as also?
So like Daishul is probably gonna laugh at this, but like I've one of the reasons why I'm like in therapy is because I have always valued my pride and like how stubborn I am as like
Hmm.
a strong trait.
Yeah, we know.
because because I feel like it gives me an edge. Like I feel like I don't give up. And like I feel like I'm so far accomplished for my age. And I feel like that's because like I have such a strong sense of drive. And
Hmm.
because like although it's not good in other ways, in the sense that like I feel like I don't need anyone and I can do everything on my
Hmm.
own. I feel like that's also like given me like an advantage in other situations. And so like I think that I am like stronger than the average person, and I can put up with more shit than the average person.
Right.
And I think I'm more like driven in a certain sense. So yeah, I mean, I genuinely believe everything happens for a reason. And I know that like though this is my dirty laundry, I know someone else has a different type of dirty laundry or like different shitty experiences. And so I think that like you I don't believe in God, but like I believe in karma and like the universe, and I think that everyone has almost like a path. And so this
Hmm.
is my path. And all this shitty stuff that happened to me as a child, like I think that like it molded me into who I am today, and I really like who I am. So I'm not going to like mope around about it.
There you
Yeah, and
go.
like, be like, why me? People
Yeah,
always do the whole
exactly.
why me and don't look at why not. So it's like one of those
Mhm.
things that you are able to be like where you are and who you are because you had no choice. Sometimes people are privileged when they're younger and don't go through things, and they're not, they're given so many choices and options, so then it's tough for them in the real world. So you've accomplished so much at your age to own a what, like, didn't you own your house at like 24?
23.
23.
23, yeah. See, like, that is amazing that girl, I know people who are 40 who ain't got no house.
Oh, I
Okay,
know,
like,
yeah.
so it's just something, and I also, had to think it has to do with your sign. Shout out to Scorpios. They
I
just
don't think it
say,
has anything to do with
I,
the sign, but
yes,
then
it does.
Oh,
It
oh,
has
shut up,
all,
it don't
Deshola.
have
You're a
yes.
anything to do with
Pisces,
the
so you're
sign.
compatible.
It has
Anyways,
everything to do with the sign. Scorpios are strong-willed people. We're strong-minded. We have strong personalities. But moving along, but yes, a lot of what you went through has made you like a strong person. So it's really great and positive to hear that you're not allowing, you're not playing the victim, and you're doing the, why not me? Like, what am I going to learn from this, and what can I
thank
do
you,
with
and
it? So that's
I'm so
cool.
glad you
Yeah.
said that, by the way, because I'm not a why me kind of person. That's like Chloe knows how I feel. It's like the person that says, "I'm such a good person. Why is this happening to me?" Really, people who say they're good people are usually the ones that are not. Okay, I'm just saying, like you're not the ones that's supposed to say this about yourself, right? So the why me thing never helps. I'm glad that you
Hmm.
said that, and I do have a couple more questions that I feel like everyone's gonna want to know. One question is, how was your relationship with your dad once you actually came back in your life for all those years, and how long was the span? Because you said he left and then he came back, and then you
Hmm.
guys had another rift in 2016. And then final
Hmm.
question is, how is your relationship with your dad now?
Okay, so the first question. So the timeline was it was probably around 2005, 2006 that he left, came back in 2008 at the end. And then I was starting high school at that point. And so we were really close. I mean, like, I didn't get along with my mom growing up. And so I would go to my dad, and he was kind of like the favored parent as a child. But he was also really strict, so it was kind of hard. Like I butted heads with both of them. But we were really close. I feel like I've inherited a lot of my traits, good and bad, from him. And so I think there are a lot of similarities there, which obviously sets us up to have like a good relationship. Um, and yeah, we had a fine relationship. I thought that everything was in the past, and like it was just like okay, because I don't like conflict, I don't like to talk about things. I just kind of like brushed it under the rug as he preferred and went along with things. And then in 2016 it was really awkward because it was my last year of college that I was living at home, and I literally lived in the same house with him and didn't speak to him. And I mean, I know Deshola can attest to this because he
Okay,
would be,
yeah.
yeah, I'll let Deshola, do you want to like
Um,
talk about it from your
if
perspective?
you'd like, the show's not about me, but I will give my give my what I did see. So yeah, when she tells you she would ignore him, I mean, I was Chloe and I have been friends for many years, and I would go into the house. Chloe, like I would come to her house, knock on the door. She'd come downstairs, open the door for me. Her dad would be sitting right on the couch. She'll go walk right up the stairs, and I'll sit there and talk to him and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Blah blah. He'll talk to me. He'll ask, "What are you guys doing today?" Blah blah blah. If Chloe hadn't already walked upstairs, she'll literally ignore him, and just walk away. Or if we're in her room and we're talking, he'll come in the room and say, "Hey, so like, what's going on? How you guys doing?" "I'm fine." uh like, anything happening tonight? No. Or she won't say anything, and I'll be sitting there like trying to keep the conversation going because I felt so uncomfortable, you know. So she's when she says she's like it was awkward, it really was, but it seemed like it wasn't awkward for her at all.
Yeah, that like you saying that back, I hate that because like to me that sounds like someone who is like a spoiled brat, like someone who's like, "Oh, really? You were like living under your dad's roof and like that's how you're treating him?" And so like I just wanted to get out and move out so bad. Like the last year of college it was so bad, and then like the month that I graduated, I moved out a week later, and like I didn't speak to him. I did try to make an effort Father's Day in 2018, and I invited him over to my house so he could see the new house that I had bought. We went out to lunch, and it was all very surface level. And like after that interaction, I like realized, okay, like this relationship is essentially dead in the water. Like there's nothing there, and like you're not going to talk about it and I'm not going to talk about it, and we're just going to pretend like this is normal. And so, and I hated that, and that's what I mean when I say like I can't be fake. Like I just won't talk to you because like I don't have it in me to like sit there and smile and like play nice. um and so yeah, you fast forward to present day, and now our relationship is totally non-existent. I'm actually working through what my therapist calls grief therapy, because it's like you're not grieving a death, but you're essentially grieving a loss of like your father. So you basically go through like all of the same steps that you would to grieve someone who died, but it's a little bit harder because they're still alive. And I know that that sounds probably morbid, and I know that there are probably people out there who are like, but he's your dad, like, and I get that to a certain extent, but like it's gotten to a point where he's almost 60. He's not going to change who he is. Like, this is who he is. This is who he's going to be for the rest of his life. He won't take accountability. Any apology I get from him will just be empty. Like, I'm sorry I hurt you, but not, I'm sorry I did X, Y, and Z, and like I was wrong for that. And so I'm kind of like taking matters into my own hands and like protecting myself, and like this is what I feel is like the right decision for me personally to I guess make myself feel better about everything.
Yeah, and you could definitely see that you have had like immense growth, because the fact that you feel a certain way by the way that you acted at that time when you had every reason to act that way. I feel like any teenager, child, whatever it is, a father to treat their child the way that he did, that it would be normal to act that way. So that's amazing that you're like, hey, I'm not proud of that, because I would have acted the same way, if not worse. So yeah, we're just gonna say
All
that.
right.
But
And
I think that's amazing.
that is so funny. She said, I would have been that and more. So, my final question to you is, what have you learned from this entire situation? Because this podcast is about moments in your life, and this was many moments in your life around the same
hmm
situation. What is the thing you'd say, the one thing or a few things that you actually learned about this entire dad issue you have?
um I, I guess, I mean, first and foremost, and this is something that I wrote in the letter to him. So maybe this is a conversation for another time, but I personally do not want children.
Mhm.
I've been very like firm in that decision since I was a child. I've just known that I've never wanted children. And something I wrote in the letter to him was that I wish that he had done some reflecting before he decided to have children, because I feel like if he knew that he was like this selfish person and he was capable of doing these things, he wouldn't have decided to have children. Because I feel like you have to be like a very selfless, like compassionate, patient person when you have kids. And I told him, like, I know I'm not compassionate, and I lack empathy, and I lack patience for other people. And so I don't want to have children. I wish that you had kind of done this reflecting before you had kids, because I think maybe like it just wouldn't have been the right choice for you. And so
Mm.
I guess the one thing that I want to impress upon people is like, don't have kids unless you think that like you can give them the best life possible. Otherwise, what is the point of like bringing another person into this life? You know what I mean?
That's amazing that you've been able to reflect that and actually, take that like information or observation that you've gathered from yourself to not put somebody in a position that you were in. So I think that's great.
Wow. Well, thank you
Well,
so
thank
much,
you.
Chloe. That was wonderful. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.
And that has been
Of
Moments.
course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Wow, that was so amazing for, Chloe and Lexi to share their story. It's something that you're so vulnerable with and so personal. So I'm so glad that they share that with us, because there's going to be listeners who can relate, or people who are in the situation, don't know what to
I
do. Or
agree.
just even people to be like, dang, like that's crazy that people go through that. It just really is wild that especially men don't like handle their responsibilities or just care about themselves more than their children. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, daddy issues is something that a lot of people can relate to. And I told maybe 3, 4 people that we were doing this episode, and every single person said, "Oh, well, if you need someone, I can do it." And I'm not exaggerating. How sad is that?
It
So,
is.
but anyways, you know what? Maybe we'll do a future episode called "Mommy Issues" because a
Oh,
lot of
that's
people,
real.
a lot of people have
I
issues with
have
their
it.
mothers too. See, no, for real. So, anyways, thank you all so much for listening
Yes,
to
thank
our
you, thank
first
you.
episode of Moments. We're
Moments.
excited about it, and tune in next week.
All right.